Hello, my name is Thomas, and today in this Photoshop tutorial we're going to be talking about the text tool. This will just be a quick tutorial covering the one tool, but there's quite a bit to cover about it. So the text tool is pretty obvious. It allows you to draw text, or rather write text on a Photoshop document. So as you saw, I'll do it again just for demonstration. But so when you select the text tool, you'll see that your cursor turns into this kind of cursor where you've like highlighted text, or you're about to highlight text with a box around it. And what this means is that you can draw a text box. So what that means is that you can click and drag, and as you can see, a marquee is drawn. But this isn't just a normal selection. This is defining where the text can go. So if we let go, we'll see that the box has become a bit more solidified. It's like a free transform, and you'll see that this lorem ipsum default text shows up. We don't really need that, obviously, unless you really want lorem ipsum on your page. But what we can do is we can write whatever we want. So we can say Photoshop text demo creative cloud. Can't spell. There we go. And as you can see, if we select a new tool, the text box will go away in the transform box, and you'll be free to do whatever you want with this text. Right now, this text is functioning as a vector layer, which we'll get into the difference between vector and raster in a different video. But what you need to know is that no matter how much you scale up this text, you won't have a harsh edge. You will always have super smooth, clean edges. So what can we do with this text? Well, we'll get rid of this layer, and right now I have a pre-made text already created. If you have the move tool selected, you can double click any text, and it'll highlight all the text within it, and it'll allow you to modify the text so you can write whatever you want. So what can we do with this text? Well, I'll show you. I'll get rid of this because I'm too funny for my own good. So when you import your text, you'll see something very similar to this. At the top, we have some of the more basic tools, your font type, your font size. You don't need to worry about this. Your justification, your color, some warp tools, and then this is how you actually access the more advanced panel. And we'll cover actually some of these settings in just a sec. So we'll get into that. We'll just close this for now. So you start, and if this works just like any other text editor, whether that's Microsoft Word or Google Docs, it's very simple. If you want to make any changes to the text, you have to highlight it. So say I wanted this all in a different font. Well, we can go up here and go to, I don't know, this hemi-head. So not all of it is here, but you can see that we've changed the font. And if, say, I wanted, dynamics to be a different font, there we go. Highlighted dynamics, and now it's and then I changed the font. The next thing we'll go over is the font type. So if your text has multiple different font types, you'll see it in this menu. In this case, hemi-head does not have any font types, but if I change it back, if I change all this font back to Times New Roman, or Arial, I think it was. There we go. Let's go regular. This isn't what it was, but we'll go with it anyways. So you can see that right now it's just in its basic form, but if I were to select everything, or just select, just a word, you can see that there's different font types. There's italic, bold, bold italic, and black. And you know these from your word editing software: italic, bold, bold italic. Black is just a like a much thicker bold, I guess you could say. You can see that nothing has really happened except it's gotten a lot thicker compared to bold. Unlike in your word editing software, if you decide to type something, so if I got rid of all this, you cannot type Control-I to type in italics, or Control-V for writing in bold. you have to go through this menu up here in order to change the type. So we'll bring all that back. So the next thing we'll talk about is the font size. So if I were to say change the font, we'll go back to Henny Head because I remember it. Henny Head bold italic. So as you can see, some of our text got cut off. So we need to make either the text box bigger or make the text smaller. So if we want to make the text smaller, what we can do is go up to here, and there's two ways to actually do this. If you want, you can use this drop-down menu. Click the arrow, and then you can select a font. You could also click inside the box and type a number. So right now it's at 24, but if I wanted it at 18, I just type 18 and then hit enter. And there we go. Now it's all back to 18 point. But there is a third way to do it. I know I said two, but there's actually a third way, which is actually if you hover your mouse over this icon that shows this little t and the big T, you'll see that your mouse cursor has two arrows going from side to side. What you can do is you can drag this left and right to change the font size. So 22 is just about what fits in there. If I go to 23, yeah, it'll be too much, but 22 will fit just right. If we were in another scenario where things didn't fit, the other way to get the text box to be a bit bigger would be to not have anything selected. That just makes things easier to see. But going up to the edges, see where these little boxes are at the edges of the text box. What you'll do is you'll drag those, and it takes a sec for things to adjust, but you can make things bigger, make things small, if you want to really adjust it so that way you have no space. There you go. So the next thing I'm going to show is the justification, and again, this works just like your Microsoft Word or your Google Docs. You have your left align, your center align, and your right aligned. You might also hear justified as well. So here it's aligned to the left side. That means all the left letters are lined up to be on the margin. Center justified, it tries to keep it in the center. And on right justified, it's the opposite of left. Lines upwards as close as it can to the right margin. The next thing we'll talk about is color, and this is pretty simple. Again, same as in Google Docs or Microsoft Word. Highlight something, you'll click this box here. Right now it's in black because the text is in black, but if you wanted a word to be in red because you really wanted to make an emphasis, there you go. Now it's in red. You can do it with any word that you want, or if you want to just change the entire paragraph, you can press Ctrl-A on your keyboard, or quadruple click and have the entire paragraph or the entire text highlighted, and then we can change the color. Say we wanted it in blue. It's turquoise. Ooh, that's hard to read. We'll go with the darker blue. There we go. Now it's in blue, and it actually kind of fits for the spacey theme. Pretty simple, nothing really too much there. One of the more interesting tools that Photoshop has, and we'll actually use another text box for this. So what I can do is have it all selected, and then if I click this is actually a text warp tool, and what it can do is give you some presets on warping the text. So what you can do is it has all of these presets. The one I was going to click was flag, or rather rise. I think rise will actually look good. And what you can do is modify the text so that way it has a certain pattern or a certain movement, a bend to it, you could say. And you typically have these three settings: bend, horizontal distortion, and vertical distortion. This kind of determines left to right, how much weight there is, how the size. So if you wanted to give the perspective that the P was in the distance and the L or the life was closer to you, you'd have quite a lot of horizontal distortion. Maybe not that much, but. And then The vertical distortion is top to bottom. Which side is wider, which side is not. So you can mess around with it. You have the ones like arc, the presets stay, so keep that in mind when you're working with them. But you can mess around with these. There's a lot of interesting ones. Fish, it's a very interesting one. Have a reverse fish. Have pirate's life be the head and life be the tail. And again, some distortion if you want to really distort it. There you go. We won't use any of these for now. Okay, and the final thing that we're going to be talking about is the advanced panel. And I say advanced panel, this is just the properties panel for the text tool. And again, a lot of this is just repeat from the top. You have your font size, the type, font type, italic, bold, underline. But you also have some extra options in here. One of the ones that's quite useful, and we'll actually use the other font for, or the other paragraph. What we'll want from this is it just has a bit more text, so I can show you how like the line spacing works. So what we'll do is we'll open up the properties panel for the text tool over here. It's this folder icon, and again, it's just kind of repeat from the last one. Font type, font size, but we have some other ones. This one here is called leading, and what leading is the space between lines of text. So if we increase this, you can see that things are starting to get further and further apart between the lines. Keep your eyes like right here. Oh, wrong one. You can see that things are getting further and further apart. But we don't really want that in this case. Well, not for demonstration purposes, but leave it actually a little bit. Yeah, maybe 38 point. This next one is called kerning. And what kerning is the space between two letters, two characters. So characters include letters, numbers, and symbols. The important thing with this, unlike leading, is that you don't select the entire text or a line of text. You just put your cursor where you want the spacing to be. So say you wanted to separate the A and the F in crafted. What you can do is you can go into here and you can see that there's some values. They range from -100 to +200, but you can certainly go beyond those. The sky's the limit, although beyond that your word kind of becomes unreadable. It looks like two words. But anyways, you can select these preset ones. You can see they just shifted a little bit. If I do that again, 50 or 75, see that just shifted. If I were to really crank this up, we're at 1495. The distance between the two is massive. So like I said, it starts to look like two words instead of one. So keep the kerning to a minimum. Try not to go too insane with it. Generally, these values are good enough. You can also have -100 if you really want your characters really close together. And you'll have to, if you want the So while kerning was the space between two letters, fuck, what is it? Tracking. So while kerning was the space between two letters, tracking is the space between all letters and all words. So, say you wanted the entire word of crafted to be spaced out. We'll actually I should go back to Pirate's Life for this one, just to make it a little easier to see. I should have probably done that for the last one. But say we wanted, there would be a bit more space between Pirates and Life. So we wanted it to fill it out from end to end. What we could do is we can go to this slider here, and again we can use the drop down menu and select some of these values, and they'll look fine. But you can also, again, go to the icon and slide it left and right, or drag it left and right, and that'll space out the characters individually for the entire word. And you can also just select one word and have that spaced out. So if we set this all back to 0, but I just wanted life to be spaced out, it really take up the entire space and not be too fussed. But there we go. That is tracking. These next few settings, these are just character size. They have to do with the size of the characters or the scaling of the characters. So if I were to select all of these, just use Control A. What I can do is say I wanted these characters to be a bit more squashed top to bottom. I could use this and say I want these at 75% their original height. You can see they're a little bit more squished. If I want these at 25%, those are really smushed. These are, a quarter of the size of their original size. And you can just go as low as you want. If you want 2%, gonna have it all selected. If you want 2%, there you go. That's how you do it. And likewise, it works the other way. So if I want characters that are 200% taller, I can go into here, make sure your mouse is over it, go 200 and then press enter. And that will make it 200% larger than it was original size. And the same works for this. This is just the width. So if I want really, really narrow characters, I could say, okay, that's 25% the original width. Pretty handy. We'll set these back to 100. There we go, all set and good. The next one is the baseline shift, and think of this as just like an offset for the lines where everything is written vertically. So if we actually go back to the other text, I keep switching back and forth. So this is just an offset. So as I go up, what this will do is just shift everything upwards. It's not changing the spacing of anything. It's not doing any changing of the, any of the size. It's just moving it upwards. It's an offset. You can use this to more finely tune where your text box, where draw another text box. So say you wanted everything above here to be moved up a bit. Shift the baseline up. And these will actually extend outside of the text box. So you can see the text box bar ends here where the top of the text box ends here, where this corner piece is, where this corner square is. But this offset will allow it to extend beyond that text box. So that's a pretty nice feature. Just set it all back to 0. These next ones are again repeats. These next tools will allow you to do bold, italic, and some other modifications to your text. So if I have all of this selected, I can do it's called a faux bold. What it'll do is it'll do its best to make this text bold, even though there was specifically no specific bold type. You can still make this bold. You can also do it as italics, so even though there's no specific italic option, you can make it even more italic than it already is. The next one is all caps, so what I'll do is turn the entire text to caps, everything you select. If it was lowercase, it'll be raised to the uppercase. The next one is small caps. So what this will do is it'll turn it caps, but it'll do its best to keep the size of the lowercase. This works better with some fonts than others. I've tested with other fonts, and it'll give you caps, but at like half the distance between. It'll be like a middle size. It won't be full. It won't be the full cap size, but it won't be the smaller lowercase size, and so it'll kind of be this halfway in between. So beware of that. Some fonts it'll work better with others. The next one is Superscript and Subscripts, and so this is good for writing. If you're designing something with, say, a chemical formula on it, this will be a good way to write it. We'll actually do a new text box with this. So we'll do magical CO, and then what we'll do is we'll click Superscript, and then you'll type whatever number you need to. So in this case, CO2, and it'll write it as a smaller one. If you're doing like a math one, where you need subscripts, like if you were doing a math one where it was like a logarithm, like log 10, you could write log in lowercase. This text doesn't have lowercase, so log 10, and then blah 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 blah. There we go. The next one is underlines and strike through, and these are pretty simple. They underline everything you type. With strike through, they strike right through it. They draw a line through it. Underline, put a line under the text. So the final thing we'll be going over is the paragraph section of this properties panel. There is two. There's the character, and then there's the paragraph. This one just kind of deals with your paragraph style. So what you can do is you can select everything, and then you can, again, stuff that was already up here, change justification, left, right, and center. You can also do full justify, with the last line being left, center, or right justified. So if you've done like newsprint stuff, this is what you'll be using. And depending on the style of the newspaper, it'll decide whether you'll use last line justified left, center, or right, or just a full justify. So if we select it all and do full justify, you won't see it because it's not small enough. It's a really awkward size. There we go. But as you can see here, everything is squared up, so all the left letters are lined up. On this side, all the right letters and symbols are lined up, and that's what a full justify will do. If I do a left justify, you'll see that on this bottom line, things will just line up on the left and not the right. With the center, it'll just be on the middle, and then on the right, it'll line up on the right. Do the full justify, it'll stretch those out to be the entire length of the paragraph. The next one is the margin. So this one will shift your left margin over. This will change what text is shown, so beware. You might need to shrink your text a little bit to make it all fit. The other one is the right margin. Now be careful with this one. You might think that dragging it left will bring the right margin leftwards, but that's actually not true. If you have to leftwards. Think of it as increasing the size of this arrow on the symbol. You'll see that there's some lines and then a vertical one with an arrow. So think of it as like increasing, and that'll, as we bring this up, the right margin will move further and further right. We'll reset those. The next one is the margin for when you indent. So if I were to indent, if I were to hit tab and indent, not a whole lot would happen until I started dragging outwards. And it doesn't update as you move the margin, but when you let go, it'll shift and you can see where your indent margin is. And that's where we'll leave it for this tutorial. We won't worry about the paragraph spacing. We'll do that in a later tutorial, but that'll be it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we'll be talking about filters in the filter gallery. So until then, I'll see you later.